Fellow tennis nerds, I hope all is well. Time for a Pro Player Racket update. I'm in Madrid, enjoying this beautiful city, enjoying the tournament. I'm only here for a couple of days. Did a thing with Tennis Channel, so a huge shout out to them. Mark Pecci, Andrea Petkovic, real gems. Nice talking to them and discussing rackets and so on. And check out their YouTube channel because they had some interesting interviews. And maybe we start there with Jiril Heshka, who has switched to the Pro Staff 97 with a 1619 pattern instead of his 1620 that he used for his 95. So he's increased the head size a bit, and in this interview he talks about like the journey of like starting with a pure drive and through the years actually reducing the head size, trying to get more control instead of going all in on the power. So now he's reversing that a little bit, going from the 95, which can be demanding. He alludes to that in the interview, that this might be, you know, sometimes when he's not on his game and he's getting someone who's pushing him hard, can be a difficult racket to use. 95 square inch rackets are not so common anymore. We have Novak, we have Cerundolo, we have a few guys still using them, but they're a little bit less popular for a reason. They're very demanding frames. So that was one key story. Check out the YouTube video. I will put a link in the description. What else have we seen in Madrid? Terence Atman, we start there, testing blacked out frame. I did talk about it before being a spin prototype from Technifiber. I know they have one. I know some players are testing that. But I've heard from other sources that this might be a P98, that famous Python that's not going to be called Python, that so many players use. And it might be that because it looks like Laxlon 4G when you look at the string. So it would make sense. Sometimes these situations can get quite hairy with the players being under contract and wanting to change and try new things. And obviously can be a little bit of a disagreements and stuff going on there. But we'll see for sure. It's a story we'll follow up. He's been doing well with this racket, so it makes sense to stay with it. But how that affects his contracts and money and so on, I have no idea. Another player that he did face in Madrid was Hugo Humbert, and Hugo has been on a seesaw, jojoing back and forth between the head speed, MP, and the blade, his old blade. Played the blade in Monte Carlo. Now in Madrid he played the speed. Did not really work so well that either. He is definitely searching for something. I'm not sure what it is. He must be enjoying the speed, but maybe not enough to make a switch. It's very easy to start second guessing or overthinking, or when you're testing gear, it becomes kind of like a bit of a head game for you easily. So if you can verify it with data, if you get your coach maybe to assist you or some external influence, it can help the process, because he seems to be a bit stuck in there. And there are a bunch of players that are stuck, so nothing wrong with that. And I wish them, you know, to get out of the racket jungle. We've all been in the racket jungle, at least if you're watching this, most likely you have. I'm in the racket jungle right now, if you can see, in the shrubbery here in Madrid. So other players in the racket jungle, I mentioned him before quite a few times, Grigor Dimitrov, back and forth between a Python and his pro staff. Not the best sign, not finding his form, struggling a little bit on the court. It's sad to see. We all like Grigor, one-handed backhand players, but yeah, he's been struggling. So we'll see if he can find his way. A player that has been a bit seesawing with rackets, but has found his way, is Stefanos Tsitsipas, who's doing really well with his old blades now in Madrid. 3-1 matches, really impressive performances on the tennis court, and excellent serving. So the service looked better than in a long time. So really exciting to see Steph back in action and playing the tennis we all know he can play. So it's always more fun to see when the players are doing well than when they get stuck in the racket jungle, which is deep and tough to get out of sometimes. Another topic I wanted to mention, because there's been an aerification of the tennis circuit. As you might know, there's so many arrows and pythons, which are kind of similar rackets. All brands want some kind of spin racket. And we have Bublik obviously using a blacked out frame that is arrow-ish and very light. And in this case, I also want to mention maybe the guy who started it all. I don't know. There are a bunch of players obviously using arrows like Fields and Rune, but Carlos Alcaraz, his success is a little bit responsible for more and more arrows and also speeds in Yannick Sinner's case. So they are creating trends. They are winning so many matches. Guys wondering, what are they doing differently? Is there something in their racket that is actually making them play better? And they obviously want to try the arrow. It has some magic effect on the ball, but it might not be for everyone. Same with the speed. It might also have a bit of extra pop, a bit extra sweet spot, but might still not work for everyone. It's very, very player style dependent and what kind of feel you're looking for. But in Alcaraz's case, the question we discussed today on the tennis channel was whether this racket is creating arm issues for him, because it's light and he plays it at a very high tension. So not very high by historical standards. I'm talking high for a stiff polyester by modern standards. So if you see many guys who are using arrows, they're using lower tensions, softer strings. That's kind of a trend I've seen on American colleges and in general on tour now. Players are dropping their tension a bit, partly to combat the bad balls that we've discussed, the infinite, but it's also to get a bit more help, especially on clay. You want to drop the tension, you want to open up a bit more free depth, a bit more easy play, because you're going to play so many shots on clay, and you can actually expect the opponent not to make so many easy winners as they can on hard courts. So it's a more maneuvering game. Makes sense to drop tension a little bit. But in Alcaraz's case, he sticks with the 55-51 if we're talking pounds, 25 kilos, 23 kilos cross. Pretty high. He plays a stiff racket, Aero VS, allegedly. That's what we know from Alcaraz frames, and 130 gauge RPM team. If you look at the Tennis Warehouse University data, which is a pretty good platform and pretty good website to understand string stiffness and also racket stiffness and racket vibrations and so on, this is a pretty firm setup. This is a 281 stiffness rating string, close to 300, which is rare. And this is a very firm string. It does feel like it plays softer than RPM Blast, but the data shows that it's not softer, and he might actually be struggling, partly due to this setup. Maybe it would be tough for him to drop tension, and it would be difficult to find the control with his big swings using a softer poly. So we'll see how Carlitos will tackle this in the future, or his team will help him, or if it's just a physical / technical / whatever it is, overuse issue. But in my opinion, it can partly be due to the equipment, considering he's playing light and stiff string. So if you are a recreational player and this is your setup, if you're not having any issues, don't worry about it, but it can lead to issues. Light, stiff string, not the best combo. Stiff strings should be strung at lower tensions for most club players, I would say, or go for a softer setup. There's so many options, and you can check out our recommended strings for more. We had some spots also. Challenger Tour, Timofey Skatov also testing an arrow, another aerified player. Maybe it's blacked out, so maybe it's not a permanent change, but he's testing. He used to use an ISO 98. And I have heard from a bunch of players actually that some brands are actually pushing their players, maybe all brands, to use their latest model. And that's something I don't quite understand, or I can stand behind, because I think the best marketing for any racket brand, even if the player is endorsing the new model but is playing an older model, is that they win matches and they do well. Like if they're playing badly and they are out of form, and if they're not feel at home with the rackets, then it's bad marketing. It's not looking good at all. So in this case, to push players towards using new tech when it might actually hurt their results, that's not great. But obviously I understand the racket brands, they want to make sure that the players get to test the new rackets, but I would say that it should stop there, because if the player is not confident with the new equipment, then results might drop quickly, rankings might drop quickly, and it might become a big issue actually, because it might lead them further down the racket jungle, or lead them to dropping confidence enough to actually have a harder time to regain it. So if I was a racket brand, I would be very careful. I'd rather be sending them painted older rackets that seem to work for them historically than try to get them to play new rackets. But that's just me, just my personal opinion. Maybe it's not as bad as I put it out here, but that's what I've heard from players. So I'm just saying that, I think there's a reason that cosmetics and paint shops exist, because players want to play with their old bats, what they're used to, what all the muscle memory got them to. But still, obviously, the brands want them to endorse modern rackets and new models. That makes all the sense in the world. But still, I think better for the player usually to stay with what they know. Also want to mention again, I think I mentioned him in a bunch of videos already, but he's just exciting to watch. Rafael Jodar, the Spanish tennis phenomenon, doing really well, beating Fonseca here in Madrid. And yeah, he can go far. This guy is good. He's 19 years old, plays a speed TGT 339 mold. I said that before. I got some tension numbers from Australia. He used 130 Lynx Tour at 23 kilos. So nothing crazy in terms of tension. I did watch his first match in Madrid, and Madrid is on a high altitude. The balls are flying a little bit, and it's a pretty fast condition. You're seeing big servers do pretty well here. He struggled in the first match. The balls were just flying. I could see that he was really wondering what was going on. But I felt like first match you're nervous, first match you're not used to that the balls are actually flying. Maybe you haven't adjusted your string tension or your game to suit the new conditions. As tennis players, you always need to adjust to balls, adjust to the conditions, adjust to your new racket if you're testing rackets, adjust to your opponent, and so on. It's a game of adjustment. And the better you are at adjusting and bringing your A game every day, despite new conditions and new challenges, the better you will do. And he seems to have found a good way. He got through the first match. Now he's on a tier. This guy is going to be ranked top 20 this year, maybe even better. Who knows? I think that is it for this pro player racket rant. A little bit of a weirdly produced video. This one standing in some it's not a prison, actually, it's a garden, because I am not so good at editing, and I guess my videos are mainly informational, so maybe it doesn't matter so much. But yeah, this is what I could dig up here in Madrid. But I hope you're well, and most of all, don't forget to play some tennis.